Canadians continue to deal with rising prices, interest rates, and a volatile stock market. Now, that's a lot to handle. And amid all this, parents are showing concern about opportunities for their children and a stable financial future for their families. Inflation hit a 39-year high in June. This comes amid an economy hampered by COVID-19, labor shortages, and supply chain challenges. So what can Canadians do to deal with the stress associated with all of this? Joining us now to tell us how he handles the stress is Brendan Caldwell, Director of Caldwell Securities Ltd. Brendan, welcome back to Forum Daily.
Well, thank you, Nima, but now you got me totally stressed out. I don't know what to say.
Well, Brendan, let's talk about this month in particular. August is typically the time that families take time off before the school year begins. And you believe that this year especially, it's extremely important to take whatever time that you have to de-stress. Why is that?
Well, I would agree, because, this has been a long and difficult road for everybody, and some far more difficult than others. We've had loss of time, loss in some cases loved ones. And I think it is important for each of us to do what is necessary to actually take a little time, focus on ourselves, and get our whole selves straight, heart, mind, and body.
Definitely very important, Brendan. Now, you yourself have a lot on your plate, from a volatile stock market to potentially concerned clients regarding the stock market. So that's a lot to take for yourself. What do you do to de-stress, to keep your mental health in check?
Well, the funny thing is, most people think the ups and downs of the stock market are the most stressful parts of our industry. It's not. The market goes up, the market goes down. The general trend in the Western world has it's been to go up with some dips along the way, but that's not actually the stressful part. It's usually dealing with people, their stresses, and their interactions. That tends to be the more challenging part, rather than the financial. There's a few things that I do. I do spend some time in the morning reading, meditating, both helpful literature, the Bible, and I do spend some time sailing, and I got to tell you, I like the movies. I've seen Top Gun 5 times, and if that doesn't help you de-stress, I don't know what will.
Now, on that point of sailing, Brendan, I just learned that you're a sailor and you'd like to introduce other people to the sport. So what kind of feedback have you been getting from people after they first try sailing?
Well, let's clarify, Nima. This wasn't built for a sport, except maybe as a middleweight sumo wrestler. The sailing I do is purely cruising. And what I found is that the crews we take out are mostly people that, at least there'll be somebody on board who hasn't seen Toronto from that perspective. And it's a totally different city when you see it from the water. Or many people have never been sailing before at all. And it's a very different experience. And what works for me about it, and I think others this resonates with, is that unlike a motorboat where you're fighting the wind and the waves, with a sailboat, you're much more in tune to nature. You're actually having to go with and work with nature, the wind and the waves. And that, I find, helps tune up my mind and my spirit.
Sounds like I'm going to have to get into sailing, Brendan. Now, I want to touch on something you said a little earlier in the interview, that we hear a lot of people say that they're stressed, but a lot of times it's a multi-layered issue. It's about maintaining one's overall well-being. That's mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual, but they usually claim that it's all financial stress. What do you think about this, Brendan?
Well, I would quote my father, as I want to do, although he says I never listen to him. I'll quote my father in saying, there are no financial problems. There are financial symptoms of other problems. So if you can spend some time addressing physical, emotional, spiritual, I do think mental, spiritual, emotional, all very much connected. To the extent you can address those needs, those concerns, those deficiencies, the financial tends to be symptomatic of something going wrong elsewhere in one's life. So, there's a lot in your introduction of what to take in terms of what people feel they need to do. And this has been a very challenging, to use your word, environment. But I think if you address the underlying issues with one's own self, it does help considerably the financial and every other external strain.
Some important food for thought there, Brendan. Now, we've got just about 30 seconds left here, but if there was just one piece of advice you could leave our viewers with today, what would it be?
Take it one day at a time. Whether it's financial stress, you're not going to fix all your problems on one day. Emotional or any other stress, we all took however many years or decades we've been on this earth to get to where we are. If you take it one day at a time, you will begin to deal with the issues one after the other. But, I've lived on this earth 52 years. All the issues I've built up over a half century aren't going to go away in a week. But if I work on things a little by little, they tend to have a way of getting themselves solved, if only little by little.
Great advice as always, Brendan. Thank you again for your time today.
Thank you, Nima.
We'll be right back.